Morning. It's great to have you all out here on a beautiful Saturday morning. Thank you for sharing your morning with us. I am Tara Menza, Co-Director of Action and Advocacy for the League of Women Voters, Boulder County. And coming up on my 4th year with the League. Just some housekeeping notes. Feel free to get up and get more coffee. The restrooms are located in the back on the right-hand side. And this event is also being recorded. I would like to take just a moment to thank Trent Hain for the use of this wonderful space this morning. Finding space for events is really hard, and we are perfect. So thank you, Trent. Trent is also the husband of our fabulous new operations coordinator, Stephanie. Yeah. So Stephanie, thank you. The League of Women Voters Boulder County was honored to collaborate with the Emergency Family Assistance Association and Sister Carmen on candidate forums during the election season. If anyone wasn't aware that we were accepting donations for them this morning, please consider donating to them online. We have a very packed schedule. We're going to discuss the Boulder County election. We want to inspire members about volunteer and leadership opportunities. And if you're not a member, we'd love to have you join because we like to celebrate membership milestones and accomplishments. So we're going to have a great community conversation about the election season of 2023. We're going to spotlight our fund development and different opportunities for leadership and volunteering with the League of Women Voters. We're going to talk about our issue teams, the highlights and projects that they're working on, and then again we have some longevity awards and membership milestones. So the mission and vision of the Boulder County League of Women Voters is we envision a democracy in which every person has the desire, the right, the knowledge, and the confidence to participate. The League of Women Voters works to empower voters and defend democracy. The purpose of the League of Women Voters is it's a nonpartisan political organization which encourages informed and active participation in government and influences public policy through education and advocacy. The League of Women Voters Boulder County enacts this purpose through voter service. We present unbiased, nonpartisan information about elections, the voting process, and issues. And we also organize some wonderful candidate forums. The League does not support or oppose any political party or candidate. We're also big with advocacy. While the League is nonpartisan, we advocate for or against specific government policies and legislative proposals based on our organizational positions and current program priorities. So for our conversation this morning, I would just like to remind everyone to please raise your hand. I will bring you a microphone, and that way everyone can hear your question. Be respectful and listen to whoever is speaking. There are many different feelings about the election and about the outcomes of the election, and we want to make sure that we respect everyone's thoughts and positions. And stay on the topic of the Boulder County election. I would like to introduce a fellow member of the League of Women Voters Boulder County. She's a member of the nominating committee, the voting methods team, a member at large of the board of directors, and she's co-coordinator of our candidate forums. I'd like to introduce this morning, Martine Eleanor.
Thank you, Tara. Thank you all in advance for helping us maintain a respectful, safe, and civil space. My name is Martine Eleanor. I am a proud member of the League and I am pleased to serve as moderator for today's post-election discussion. The membership meeting will start after the discussion. First, a little mini announcement. In the interest of encouraging the aforementioned active participation in government in line with League of Women Voters' vision and mission, the League encourages you to attend the post-election risk-limiting audits at the Boulder County Clerk's Office. We can give you more information about that. Let me see, actually I might have it, here it is. On November 18th at 12:30 p.m., it will be the normal, I guess, risk limiting audits for all of the elections except for Boulder Mayor. Will be at the County Clerk's Office at 1750 33rd Street in Boulder. And then on November 20th at the early hour of 8 a.m., the County Clerk's Office will be hosting the Boulder's Instant Runoff RCV Mayoral Contest risk limiting audits. And you can ask any voting methods team for information on that. All right, so this event will focus on the post-election discussion on 2023 elections in Boulder County. And as you can see, they're displaying the results of the Boulder Mayor election results on the screen. We can start, I guess, with the general open question. How was the experience of Boulder's first use of instant runoff ranked choice voting work? Who would like to take that? Do you want to talk about that, Celeste, or we can have an open discussion amongst the audience?
I think we should go where the audience wants us to go.
Okay.
So if nobody wants to talk about it, or they want to talk about it after they talk about other things, let's go.
Yeah, so I live in Boulder, so I didn't vote in the election, but I was very interested. And it certainly generated a lot of press. And last night I was watching my usual PBS Friday night stuff on Channel 12. Colorado Inside Out was a big topic then. And then John Caldera on his show was talking about it. And his input on it was that he'd rather actually be involved in each runoff election so they knows who the opponents are. So he came out in favor of the approval voting instead. But everybody thought it was a great innovation.
Hi, this is Neil, and one of the things that struck me was the fact that there were 3 sitting members of council in the mayoral election. And the fact that we had a separate election for mayor meant that that 2 of them were not allowed to run again for council if they wanted to. So we lost kind of experience on council because we set it up not only to have a separate election for mayor, which is kind of a minor, they're really mostly just council members, but also preventing people whose term is expiring from running for council too. So I think we lost some experience because I think we had actually a great diversity of opinion in the candidates.
Remind us the way we used to do it.
Yeah, in the past, you would just vote for 5 of 9 council members every 2 years. And then the council itself would choose who the mayor would be. And that ensured, kind of like in Congress or in our legislature, that the council supports the mayor as someone who can lead them. And here we're kind of setting up an opportunity for more divisiveness. I think this mayor is already serving as mayor, so that won't be a problem. But and I'd also just say that the method that we're using is vulnerable. It was very helpful this time, as Peggy said. I think we would have had a different outcome if we hadn't had the instant runoff voting method. Because one of the people running would have been a spoiler, but this method doesn't solve all the possible spoiler scenarios as we saw in Alaska and in Vermont several years ago. So approval voting, that's what I would go for, but I wouldn't even vote for mayor. I would find proportional representation for council, which I hope we'll talk more about in a minute.
I'm Janine, and I live in Boulder, and, I was really, chagrined by the outcome of the ranked choice voting. And I subscribe with what, just said about losing, extremely important, historical knowledge when you have somebody have to run and then lose their seat completely because they didn't win the ranked choice. I, know that I'm reading the paper that I'm probably in the minority, but I felt like it was a stacked outcome with, Aaron Brockett and Nicole Spear really essentially running the same campaign from my perspective. And then in the runoff, that whoever voted for Nicole, those votes then went to Brockett by and large. So I wasn't pleased with the way the system, from my perspective, appeared to be gained on just one voice. I wouldn't subscribe to using this in the future, this ranked list.
I will say you are just one voice, but you're also one voice of many, so don't discount your voice.
So I'm on now, I'm Stan. I cannot vote City of Boulder because I'm a resident of Superior, but I will say I was very pleased that at least the Daily Camera, I thought did a really nice job of trying to explain the issues and, ranked choice voting, gave several summaries of what was gonna be on the ballot. So I was actually really pleased, to see that there was what I thought some good education for voters. So that's I just wanted to put that out, I'm appreciative of them and they probably took some lines that we gave them.
Anyone else have any comments or questions?
So hi, my name is Laura. I do live in the city of Boulder and voted in this election, and I really appreciated the ranked choice voting method that we used. I do think that both Bob and Aaron, they made their own choices whether to run for mayor or council, and they both had to think about term limits. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but I think that they're both pretty close to terming out. They both served 2 terms on council. If they went for a 3rd term on council, that might do them from running for mayor in the future. So, I think it's a complicated decision for them. Likewise, Nicole also made her own choice whether to run or not. I don't know if that decision would have been the same. We were just using plurality voting rather than ranked choice. I know that they did talk about the issue of having 2 similar candidates and one being a spoiler. So that outcome might have been very different if we were doing different voting method. And I do appreciate the way that ranked choice voting does the instant runoff, so we don't have to run a whole separate runoff election. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Cassandra. I'm brand new to the league and brand new to Colorado. So this is great information. And I'm just wondering if you could just define a couple terms for me so I understand what approval voting is. I see that and I'm wondering if that's something different than majority vote. Can you just define our terms so I can understand the distinctions a little better?
Education is one of the wonderful things that the league does.
Yes, I could speak to that.
Neil just help too.
Yeah, that's great. Celeste is always ready with something. So approval voting is astonishingly enough, a newly defined kind of voting from the seventies and beyond that simply says vote for as many as you want. So much like we do in the city council races, you can check yes on multiple candidates. They actually limit that in the council to the number of winners, but there's actually no reason, and it's actually kind of problematic to limit the number that you want. If you want to vote against somebody, approval voting would allow you to vote for everybody else. You're basically saying, please, not that person. If there's a couple of candidates that you really like, you just vote for them. So, and you then just total up all the ballots, all the votes for all the people. And so there's no possibility of us, well, people will debate lots of aspects of it, but it's very simple. It works with our existing system, doesn't take more space on the ballot. And it's used in St. Louis, it's used in Fargo, North Dakota, and there are campaigns to get it used elsewhere. So a very simple voting reform.
We use plurality right now, except for the Boulder mayoral race. Approval voting is what he's talking about.
Other questions or?
I'm just wondering whatever happened to the idea of dividing Boulder City into districts for the mayor, or not for the mayor, for the council. I mean, I happen to live in southeast Boulder and we feel, unloved, but we're not well represented.
Every time you kind of like Longmont does with its wards. So there are problems with having wards. The only thing you get with a ward is geographic representation. And Broomfield has wards, and they were supposed to use instant runoff RCV, and they didn't get more than 2 candidates to run for any of their seats. So you don't get as much competition. The voting methods team is a big proponent of proportional representation. And we would love to see the city council have a study session on proportional representation. We've been asking, and we'll ask again for the 2024 council work plan. And with proportional representation, it can be based on anything. It can be based on ideology, factions, slates, whatever. It can be based on neighborhood. It can be based on gender, racial identity, gender preference. I mean, it can be based on neighborhoods where, this has happened in Cambridge, where they get such a diverse group of people on their city council. And a good thing about getting diversity is you get diversity of opinions, and you have to get along to get things done. And Boulder actually had a proportional elections from 1917 to 1947. We only elected 3 people to 6-year terms for our city council. And if you want better proportional representation, you could do what we have been doing, which is 5, elect 5, and then you would get good proportional representation, and they could serve 4 years or 2 years like they have been.
You want to define the term if not everybody knows what it means?
So proportional representation means that the elected body, it has to be a group of people. It can't be a single office okay, you can never have one mayor. It can't be a single office. It has to be a body, like county commission or school board or city council. And it means that the people elected are representative of the electorate. So if 40% of the electorate votes a certain way, 40% of the seats should be filled by representatives of that opinion. But an interesting thing about proportional representation at the city council nonpartisan level is there are all these cross factors. It's not just ideology. When you think of party lists in Europe, that's only
party based. That's the only dimension. Whereas in city council, it could be so multidimensional. I'm a big fan.
A lot of big fans here, yeah.
So what has been resistance to proportional representation in Boulder?
It's not homelessness, it's not, the economy. We already have a lot of work when we see a ballot to figure things out, why make it more complicated? The national organization Fair Vote, which, advocates mostly for instant runoff voting, but they started off as the Center for Proportional Representation. And, but I think that was too hard to sell, so they decided they would stick to instant runoff ranked choice voting, and maybe they could encourage people to get to proportional representation. The progressive movement in, the early 1900s pushed very hard for proportional representation. They set up model charters, and that's part of the reason why Boulder became a proportional representation city. But it's not a burning issue for people. And you need to get legislators or enough voters behind it to get it on the ballot, because it would be a charter change. Did I answer your question? That's my take on it.
Yeah, I'm curious, because I think, I don't know, a few years back, I listened to the podcast, and they really got at the duopoly, the power of the Democrat and Republican parties, just, and I was just curious how he maybe break through that aspect, or what can be done to.
I think that's Catherine Gell and Michael Porter who did Breaking the Two-Party Duopoly.
Yeah.
And they are big fans of instant runoff, RCV, and a final five, which hasn't been shown yet to break the two-party duopoly. Proportional representation is the only thing I know of that will break the two-party duopoly. And, as long as we have this duopoly, we aren't going to get vibrant third parties, right? Our system right now is set up for two parties. It's difficult. Polarization.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hernán Villanueva. Sorry, I'm circling back to the RCB voting method. I'll try to realize my ideas. I'm a little late to party. What I wanted to say is with this election, I went through the 5 stages of grief. First of all, denial. There's no way, Bob's gonna lose. And then anger, this sucks. But, but at the end, it was I had acceptance. I mean, I am in the acceptance stage. First, we gotta remember that 78% of people in Boulder voted for this method. So it's what the people wanted. And second, I do think the final result does overall reflect the vibe that the voters wanted. If you look at the numbers, I mean, it's not only that all the people from the poll went to Aaron. If you look at the numbers, some people from the poll and some people from I guess it was from poll went to Bob. So I think at the end, the system did capture the vibe and the common theme of what people wanted. And I think that's good. I think if it had just been our old system, it wouldn't have quite reflected what people were voting for, this common theme of what Aaron and Nicole were going for. I voted for Paul. So definitely I was disappointed, but overall I think the system did reflect what the people wanted. So I just say that.
I just want to interject for a minute here. One of the things that people have asked about is why did they get Nicole and Paul get eliminated simultaneously? That's called a batch elimination. It doesn't have to happen that way. It gives us less information. If Paul, who got the fewest number of votes, had been eliminated first, we would have a better idea who his supporters put second. We don't have, I mean, we have some ideas, of course, but it would give us more visibility. And one of the things the league is talking about doing, the voting methods team, is trying to get it reported in 3 rounds, so we have more data for people to see.
Can you show the graphical view too?
Yeah.
The other thing that troubled me about the election for city council mayor, the thing on my mind is, towards the very end of the election, there was, apparently literature that went out, that supposedly, unveiled, Yates as a former Republican, he turned to independent. And I would really, really appreciate the league coming out and addressing this even post-election, that this is not okay, this is a nonpartisan office. And I don't know who was responsible for that, but I think that we should believe to at least remind voters that it is a nonpartisan office, and that I think it's dirty campaign tactics. I don't care who it is that they're for unveil.
Oh, okay, we're gonna do something I haven't seen.
Maybe, well, sorry.
Maybe I'll do animation, the animations. You can see.
But you can't tell which come from Paul and which come from Nicole, so we're gonna try to get that tape. And we will know later on when they release the tape.
Thank you, everyone, for that robust discussion on the Boulder mayor and RCV and instant runoff voting. Lots of firsts happening in Boulder this year. For our next topic, we can go to another part of the county. Let's discuss Longmont and specifically the ballot measures. We can start it off with Tim Waters in the back there and then let the conversation flow.
Yeah, hello, I'm Tim Waters. Hey, this is one of our candidates in this last election cycle, and I'm going to give a view on my choice of voting. I'm not certain, why don't we just do this, if there are questions, I have an opinion, a strong one, on each of the 3 ballot measures that failed. I don't have any more insights than you do in terms of voters along with as to why, and opinion about those. But what are the questions? I'll be happy to, as a city council member who voted to put those on the ballot, I'm happy to answer questions if you have them, if I can, and see what the conversation does.
Tim, before we open it up to questions, could you give us like a brief 1-sentence summary of each of the ballot issues?
Yeah, one of the problems in this election cycle is that none of them were simple. None of them were a 1-sentence response. That was part of the problem, I think, or one of the issues. We had 3 questions on the ballot. One was recreation, a package of recreation amenities.
Is that 3C?
E.
3E. Do you want to say them in order or?
It was 3C, the 3C was the library. So we had 4 years, we had, here you want 1 sentence. It was to approve a mill levy of 2 mills to expand the library, to build an annex, and a small sales tax, dedicated sales tax increase to staff additional capacity. That follows a feasibility study from several years ago that kind of laid out where Longmont stands or sits in relationship to other Colorado municipalities and how underserved, in my opinion, and those who did the study, how underserved Longmont residents are in terms of capacity and support the library. That was 3C. 3D was a arts entertainment center. Again, there's a complexity to this one on the ballot with a commitment from the city to bond $45 million of investment in an arts and entertainment center. If the private sector in particular, we have a couple of arts groups in Longmont, could raise $35 million from the private sector, that would have been an escrow, not just pledge, money in the bank in a 5-year period of time. Had that occurred, then the city of Longmont would have bonded for $45 million to match $35 million, and then, you know, move to a location, a couple of locations possible. But I think many members of the community just didn't get that relationship in delaying a mill levy, and then, you know, what's gonna happen in the private sector beside this, and lots of other points of view as well about do we need that kind of a facility in Longmont. My preference would be that we have put it past it, but that's, you know, obviously there's lots of other points of view. The third package, 3E, was the recreation package. It was, yeah, its own levels of complexity. Even before, late in the process, we had a proposal from the YMCA of Northern Colorado to partner with the city of Longmont in a public-private partnership to deed one another property, build a YMCA facility where there is currently a city swimming pool, and then a deed of land back to the city where the current Y sits. I mean, there were just so much complexity in it. It was an awesome opportunity, in my opinion, for the city of Longmont that just people couldn't get their heads wrapped around. It got branded, reduced to a land swap. And you're gonna vote for the land swap. I mean, that's kind of the narrative that emerged around this.
Thank you.
More than one says.
That's,
So HH failed, and there's a special session to deal with the failure of it. What's next for Longmont since these three failed?
Well, I have one more meeting as a city council member, and then I'm transitioning to civilian life. So I won't be part of the decision. I may be part of the discussion going forward. We're gonna have to take stock. I have recommended that we, as both the staff and the council, invite the proponents of the community, or anybody in the community, whether they're proponent or not, in an after action review, to answer a couple of questions. What happened during this election cycle? What did we learn? And how do we apply what we learned next time out, whenever that is? We lost the ballot question to fund the recreation center in 2019. We failed to learn the lessons from that experience and repeated some of the very same behaviors that were problematic in this cycle. So I hope what's next is that we get smarter because we're intentional about sharing what there is to learn and how we'll apply it moving forward. And we invite those who were proponents and those who were vocal opponents into that conversation. You know, that's what happened with.
we just want to open it up to anyone who had a question.
Any Longmont residents who have questions?
So mine's not so much a question as I am a Longmont resident, and I did vote for HH, and I did vote for 3C and 3D. I did vote for the rec center. But my observation was, my husband has a PhD. I have a master's degree in education. I teach children how to read comprehension questions. And we sat knee to knee and went through the ballot. And we had to have Google open to define some of the terms. And it got to where we were like, I guess so. And that was with, you know, so it, like, just talking about mill levies, like, do people even know what that means? And so I'm really big on, like, we could not understand what we were voting for. And finally I said, I voted against 3E just because I was like, well, I said yes on everything else, so, you know, I'm just gonna go with this. And it really came down on this deal of coin flip, because it was so complicated.
Yeah, that's one of the insights, one of the learnings for going forward.
Yeah.
Is taking a hard look at that language and how consumable, digestible it is. It was the same mistake we made in 2019.
Well, I sometimes feel when they ask you a really complicated question, it almost feels like a cheat. Like, are they purposely making this complicated? I don't know what I'm looking for, and that leads me to feel scared.
That was how I took Prop HH.
Yeah, no, I'm not a Longmont resident either, but I was on the ballot issues team for League of Women Voters, trying to write up an explanation for those. And we spent a long time on the recreation center one. And I watched the city council meeting, and there seemed to be a concerted lobbying effort to combine the two possible issues. And then council voted unanimously to combine it, and I thought, wow, this is just, it was already complicated. And then to combine them was just, I didn't understand what that lobbying process was, why people wanted them to be together.
Well, not everybody did want to be together. Some people would have preferred separate questions. I will tell you, as one who was at the dais, and when that decision was made, my view is, I was unwilling to ask those in northeast Longmont, in an area that utilized Centennial Pool, that's lived its lifespan, is gonna get, it will get in the relatively near future shut down, I believe. The original proposal was gonna be to turn it into 2 basketball courts to the YMCA here. I was unwilling to ask those residents to tax themselves to pay for a new rec center on the southeast and southwest side of town, without giving the folks on southwest Longmont a chance to support what needs to be happening in northeast Longmont. So personally, my message to the community was, if you're not willing to vote for both of them, you don't get to pick the one that serves you and ask them to pay for it. Right, if we're not willing to do this together. That was my view. Well. Well, we just said we have wards in Longmont. We had a different experience in terms of voter or campaign or candidate turnout. Every one of our races had more than 2 candidates. So ranked choice voting would have made a difference in the ward I represent. And I think probably in Ward 3, and maybe for the at-large election. So you can have multiple candidates, and I say ranked choice voting would have been real helpful in this last election cycle.
Here they are. How do you feel about proportional representation?
Any approach that mitigates the effect of gerrymandering, for me, by itself is a reason to take a hard look at how this works. It is one of the biggest pathologies in our whole political system, in my opinion. I have to get my head wrapped around what it looks like in a place like Longmont, where you've got a ward system, you would have to abandon the ward system.
Yes.
Some people think that would be a good idea, others don't. I do know as a ward representative, the number of phone calls I field, or emails I fielded a week, I got it. From Ward 1 residents who are so get frustrated with the city. They don't know who to call, so they call their city. I would never have done that. I would be shocked at how many people do. That's the call they made. So that's the other side of the board question, right? They know, and my job is to help represent them, get their way through the system to get to the right city staff or whatever. But it has its own consequences, right? Limits the ward system as it exists right now.
So I just wanted to note that so ward systems rely on geography being the thing that makes a difference for people. And that's why it's been supported historically. And it was easy and you could do it a long time ago. Proportional representation, I think, allows people to vote based on their geography. It also allows them to vote based on whether they're a renter or a homeowner. It also allows, it depends on what the issues are salient in a given place, and it can change over time. So gerrymandering is going to exist with any ward system. And I think proportional representation cuts to the heart of how do we make sure that the people And I mean, we're having this wonderful conversation, we have many viewpoints and so on. When you have the possibility, as we have now in Boulder, didn't quite happen, but it kind of happens over time, that a majority, a slim majority, or even less than a majority, really gets a slate together and says, you know, we're gonna win this election. Half the people might not be represented in the council. So, and that can happen with wards as, and we see, anyway, so I just wanted to encourage everyone to get this wonderful handout, which we worked hard on. And I have heard support on council, for years about this. They've had other stuff on their plate. I'm hoping that this year we can just bring it back to them and say, so we've had success, you know, in terms of running this ranked choice voting election. It's actually possible to do proportional representation with approval voting, or it's a much simpler ballot, but you still end up just finding a way to make sure that nearly everyone sees someone on council that is speaking on their behalf, essentially, that is echoing their position. So anyway.
Thank you very much. We're gonna transition out. Because I live in Loma, I'll give you my opinion about the ballot measures too. I think people were so unsure about Prop HH and the property taxes and what was gonna happen. There was so much convoluted information about that. And the Loma ballot measures would increase your property taxes as well as your sales tax. And people were just, they just said enough. Like, now is not the time to do this. And it's really sad because I voted for the Performing Arts Center. The arts entertainment is very near and dear to my heart and my family, and I'm really bummed that that didn't pass. But I kind of have a feeling none of them would, because I just hear people say, no way, I cannot afford anymore. The Prop HH and property taxes, not knowing what's gonna happen, so.
We heard a little bit of that. It was not a great year to be on the ballot.
Thank you so much to our audience. Oops. There we go. Thank you so much to our audience for participation and insights. And if you would like to continue our robust discussion, we have this wonderful conference room where some of us would love to answer questions and engage and continue with this discussion.
Hi, this is Jeanette Hillary. I just wanted to know if there's gonna be a follow-up to Janine's question about the league following up on mailing that went out regarding Yates. I mean, even if it's just a letter to the editor saying that, you know, this is really poor form in how you run a campaign. This is not good campaign practices. So I know this is not the forum for it, but it is the forum for it, as I am a member of the league. I would like the board to address that and get something out that this was not good campaigning.
Wait, someone who can answer that question.
Come on, Susan. I have Susan's on this, I'm on the board, and we definitely will do that. Suggested and figure out to try and inform the electorate. Better methods. Better methods. One of the things we're probably been trying to be working on in the future is lists of better places to get information, to ask you questions well in advance of election day. So for the people who wait the longest and are least sure of what they're worrying about, there will be sources of information for the board to figure out how best to word the explanation of our opinion of how that's hard.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, in the interest of time, we'll go ahead and transition to the membership meeting part of the program. Thank you so much, everyone, for the exciting discussion.